Hi all. I know that you would really be wondering why I have introduced this topic under this value investing series. I would say this session is equally important since as a well-balanced knowledge investor, you should know how the complete economy works and that how financial transactions happens, how markets rise up and down, and what is credit and what is debt, and what are the various debt cycles, what is inflation, what is deflation, what is reflation, how recession and depression happens, how central bank in India, the Reserve Bank, and in US, the Federal Reserve, which we have explained in last session, controls the economy, insights on controlling interest rates, printing money, and lots more. As the topic is too vast, I have split this into three separate sessions. So I will call that as part 1, part 2, and part 3. So I strongly suggest that all the three sessions I will release in day after day. So request you to see all the three or go through all the three sessions so that you are clear on the concept of the whole economy, how it works. So I will break this down into simpler concept for you so that you are not confused between various hi-fi or complex terms in economy but still understand what or how the economy works. The economy is made up of a few simple and basic units and some simple transactions. This mechanism again and again this mechanism is repeated again and again, which again is driven mainly by the human nature. So it creates three main forces which drives our economy. First one is productivity growth, second is short term debt cycle, and the last and the third one is long term debt cycle. So I repeat: productivity growth, short term debt cycle, and long term debt cycle. So first get into the simplest part of the economy, that is the transactions. We create transactions every time you buy something. So each transaction consists of a buyer exchanging money or credit with a seller for goods, services, or financial assets. Credit spends just like money. So if we add up the money spent and credit spent, this will give you the total spending. This total spending drives every economy. All cycles and every other phenomena in an economy is driven by this basic unit of transactions. So by understanding this concept of transaction, we can understand the whole of economy and its working. A market consists of all the sellers and buyers making transaction for the same thing. Example, there is a automobile market, a grocery market, a commodity market, or even a stock market and numerous other markets. The economy consists of all of the transactions in all of these markets. People, businesses, banks, and governments, all of them engage in transactions like we mentioned above. Biggest buyer and seller in is the government, which consists of two important entities: a central government which collects taxes and spends money, and a central government or and a central bank which is different from other buyers and sellers because it controls the amount of money and credit in the economy. So how a central bank controls the interest rate, those things we have already discussed in detail in our last session. So if you are not clear on that, I request you to go to that session as well, though we are explaining some part of that in this session also. So the central bank, so it how it uh, controls the uh, amount of money and credit in the economy. So it does this by varying the interest rates, if required, printing new money as well. So for this reason, the central bank is an important player in the flow of credit. Credit is the most important component of the economy, which we have to understand in depth. Credit is important and vital as it's the biggest and most volatile component of the economy. Just like a buyer and a seller I mentioned before, a lender and a borrower transacts similarly. Lender usually wants to grow their money and a borrower wants to buy something which normally they can't afford. For an example, a car, a house, a apartment, or like a business startup or even a business expansion. Credit can help both lenders and borrowers get what they want. Borrowers promise to repay the amount they borrow, called the principal, and an additional amount which is the interest. So the principal and its interest. So obviously when interest rates are high, borrowing is lesser, the cost of capital the cost of the capital is costly, and vice versa. If the interest rates are low, borrowing increases as they are cheaper. So again, I want you to recall the concept of the cost of the equity or the cost of the capital, which we had discussed in our earlier sessions. So if you want to brush it up, you can go back to that video and view it and again come back to this video. So as the borrower promises to repay and as lenders believes in them, a credit is created just out of thin air. So as soon as the credit is created, it immediately turns into debt. Debt is an asset to the lender and a liability to the borrower. I repeat, debt is an asset to the lender and liability to the borrower. And debt is created as soon as the credit is created. In future, when the borrower repay both principal and interest, then this asset and liability disappears and the transaction is settled. Now, as you are very clear on the transactions, credit and debt concepts of all of this, let's understand the importance of credit. As the credit allows the borrower to increase his or her spending, you already know that the spending drives an economy. Since one person's spending is another person's income, I repeat, since one person's spending is another person's income. So every rupee or dollar you spend in a is an earning for other person and vice versa. So as you spend more, it increases the earnings for the other person. So if someone's income increases, it makes him credit worthy. Basically, if someone's income rises, it makes him credit worthy. It makes him a credit worthy borrower. Since his ability to repay and the collateral, so collateral as in stocks or any other assets which can easily be liquidated. So since his ability to repay and the collateral is there, since more creditworthy borrowings lead to more creditworthy borrowers lead to more borrowings because they are creditworthy. So the lender is happy to give him on the lender is able to give the borrowings to the borrowers. So the borrowings is high and hence more spending leads to a self-reinforced network of lending and borrowing, leading to the growth of the economy. and hence this cycle repeats. Again, note that one person's spending is another person's income, which forms the foundation of an economy. In a transaction, as we discussed, we have to give something to get something, and that how much you get depends on how much you produce. As time grows, over time we learn, and that accumulated knowledge rises out the living standards, and we call that productivity growth. Those who are innovative and hardworking raises their productivity and living standards faster compared to those who are sluggish and lazy. But that isn't necessary that isn't necessarily over the short term. Productivity matters most in the long term. So, but if you see, unlike a productivity, a credit matters most in the short term. This is because productivity growth doesn't fluctuate much. Hence, it is not a great device for economic swing, but debt is. Because debt, again, we told that it is created out of a credit and a transaction. Since debt allows us to consume more than we produce when we acquire it, and it forces us to consume less than that we produce when we have to repay it. Because debt, once you have gone for a debt, like you have a credit and you have gone for a debt, this debt repayment is also important. It is not that you have a debt and you spend well and you are free out of the transaction. No, because as I mentioned before, the debt has to be repaid. So the money you borrowed today, you can lavishly spend the money, but on a later date in future, it's a burden for you, and your spending actually reduces in that future wherein you are repaying the debt, provided you are not defaulting the debt. So debt occurs that debt swings normally occurs in two big cycles. One takes 5 to 8 years and other takes as long as 75 to 100 long years. So that's a very long term cycle, and the 5 to 8 years can be uh, listed as a short term or medium term cycle. Most of us feel the swings, but doesn't see them as cycles because we see them so closely day by day, week by week, so that we don't realize the cycles. But if you take a larger perspective, or if you extract the historical data and analyze, you can see that the swings are actually happening in cycles. He, we will further look into the three big forces and how they interact to make up our experience. As mentioned by me earlier, the swing along with the lines are not due to how much innovation or hard work there is, but primarily due to how much credit is there. Let's hypothetically imagine an economy without credits. In such an economy, only way that I can increase my spending is to increase my income, which requires me to be more productive and do more work because there is no credit. Increased productivity is the only way forward for growth. Since my spending is other person's income, the economy grows as mine or the other person's productivity increases. If we follow the transaction and play this out, we see a progression like the productivity growth. productivity growth line, which is ideally a linear curve. But this doesn't happen in a but this doesn't happen in reality, because that we borrow, we have cycles. This is not due to some law or regulations, but purely due to human nature and the way that credit cycle works. Let's explain this further simpler pers- at a personal perspective. Whatever money you are borrowing today is likely pulling is likely pulling spending forwards or futuristic means whatever you can afford to buy today, you buy it on credit, but to settle this credit you have to definitely pay out the debt in future for sure. So once you settle the transaction in future, you pay money from your pocket and hence your spending capability. I'll repeat. So once you settle the transaction in future, you pay money from your pocket and hence your spending capability reduces in that point of future than what you earn then. So like if you are earning 100 rupees in future, but your debt repayment is like say 70 rupees, you end up with only 30 rupees in your hand. So your spending can be only done for a 30 rupee, though you are earning 100 rupees, because your debt which you have taken now is causing you a debt repayment on a future date wherein your spending capability is reduced, which I had explained earlier as well. This continues and represents a cycle for sure. So basically anytime you borrow, you create a cycle. So this works exactly similar for a economy as well. So this was a personal perspective, but if you extrapolate that on a larger view, this economy also works similarly in cycles, just like at the individual level. Hence credit is so important. So we will further proceed with the session 2 in the part 2 of this session in next video. Till then, happy investing.